What you really want to do is build that sense that you can contribute also, and that's the most important thing.
Hello, I'm Dan Richards. Welcome to Money Insights. This is one of a number of conversations I'm having with Lee Hausner, formerly senior psychologist with the Beverly Hills School District. And Lee, you've just had a book come out called The Legacy Family, Creating a Successful Multi-Generational Family. We've all heard the expression from shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve in 3 generations. Let me start by asking you, what is it that historically has caused so many successful families to fail in terms of maintaining that success across generations?
I'll tell you an interesting story that was repeated at a meeting when I was talking about shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve, which, by the way, Dan, is in all cultures. They have this awareness. In Asia, they speak about rice paddy to rice paddy. In Holland, they say clog to clog. And I was speaking at an international meeting, and a very prominent Thai businessman stood up and he said, "Dr. Hausner, I'll tell you what happens. A hard-working husband and wife make a fortune. Their son is a playboy, he marries a bimbo, those are very bad genes, the money is gone by the 3rd generation." Now that's one interpretation. But what I really think happens is that very often the next generation is not prepared to really understand the management of wealth. The first generation that made the wealth understands how difficult it was to create it. A second generation that is raised in wealth without an understanding of how to be a responsible steward really has no understanding of the management. When I first went into this field, I was almost stunned with the naivete of individuals who came from affluent families and had no concept of budgeting. I once dealt with a family where I was running a family meeting, and the family was overspending by very significant amounts. I'm not even going to tell you how much. And the family was going to be broke. This was 3rd generation. They were going to be the proverbial family, going to be broke in 10 years. And the family, 5 branches, 28 years old, the oldest was 41, everyone was married. When I recognized that, I felt that my responsibility at the first meeting was to make them aware of what was going to happen, and I went through this very user-friendly presentation. With this rate of spending, family, you will be broke. The family watched very attentively. And when I was finished with my presentation, they said, "Dr. Hausner, that's very interesting. What's next on the agenda?" And I looked at them and I said, "Family, this is the agenda." Right. And at that first meeting, everyone didn't run up to me afterwards and say, "Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention." It took 1.5 years to get the family on budget. I didn't even realize until I had gone through that experience that my assumption that someone would understand how to get themselves on budget would be a natural. I would just say, "You need to get on budget." Finally, they did get on budget, and I will tell you the family has been able to recreate some wealth. But they would have been typical. They completely overspent. And so it's not in your DNA to know how to manage money.
So if you're brought up to believe that there are no limits, well, you shouldn't be surprised then if people behave that way.
Absolutely.
Well, it sounds like then one of the first things that you'd consider in terms of creating that success formula is this notion of limits, of creating budgets early on, of kind of creating some level of accountability.
There's accountability, and then there's the other thing about how do we make people competent. So independently, they are able to achieve. See, that's very important too, that the next generation feel empowered and feel that they can also contribute, that they're not using, they're contributing. And a lot of that deals with all the wealth transfer strategies. How do you transfer tools and not toys? How do you create empowerment and not entitlement? How do you make sure that the day of your death is not the day of your children's retirement? Because what you really want to do is build that sense that you can contribute also. And that's the most important thing. If we have each generation contributing to the maximum, then you will be able to create a legacy family. You will not have shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve, because what people will be doing is adding in a way to the pot. And that concept becomes really very important.
So last question, let's suppose that I'm a very successful entrepreneur and I say to you, Lee, what the one most important piece of advice that you would give me, my kids, let's suppose they're in their teens, what's the most important thing that you would tell me that I have to do to create that legacy family, to make sure or maximize the chances that we will have that ongoing success across generations?
The one thing, well, not true, but I'll tell you the one thing that I would say is, I want to make sure that you are shifting from being a good parent to a responsible parent. That you don't run interference, that you don't protect, that your child is not wrapped in a bubble, that that child feels that he or she is responsible. They make decisions independently, they can achieve independently. That would be the thing, if I could only tell you one thing to do of my 10 things, I would say let that child do every single thing that he or she is capable of doing. And that means physically and intellectually.
Lee, thank you very much.
You're welcome.